The Lord has sent me to bring the good news to the poor, to proclaim liberty to the captives. Alleluia, Alleluia. The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. Seeing that many others have undertaken to draw up accounts of the events that have taken place among us, exactly as these were handed down to us by those who from the outset were eyewitnesses and ministers of the word, I, in my turn, after carefully going over the whole story from the beginning, have decided to write an ordered account for you, Theophilus, so that your Excellency may learn how well-founded the teaching is that you have received. Jesus, with the power of the Spirit in him, returned to Galilee, and his reputation spread throughout the countryside. He taught in their synagogues, and everyone praised him. He came to Nazareth, where he had been brought up, and went into the synagogue on the Sabbath day, as he usually did. He stood up to read, and they handed him the scroll of the prophet Isaiah. Unrolling the scroll, he found the place where it is written, "The Spirit of the Lord has been given to me, for he has anointed me. He has sent me to bring the good news to the poor, to proclaim liberty to captives, and to blind new sight, to set the downtrodden free, to proclaim the Lord's year of favor." He then rolled up the scroll, gave it back to the assistant, and sat down. And all the eyes in the synagogue were fixed on him. Then he began to speak to them. This text is being fulfilled even today as you listen. The Gospel of the Lord. This text is being fulfilled even today, 2019. The same text that Jesus read from Isaiah, the prophet, over 2,000 years ago. Why? Because the Word of God is alive. The Word of God never dies. This is the beginning of Luke's Gospel. He was commissioned by a famous person, Theophilus. He called him His Excellency. So in his time, he must have been a wealthy person, a very important person. And he had just become a Christian, a follower of Christ, and he probably knew very little. They had only at that time the Gospel of Mark that they were following. But yet, many of the apostles were still living, but they knew very little of Jesus. They were talking about, but they had nothing written. And so he found this Luke, who didn't know Jesus personally, but he was a great friend of Paul, of Mark, and all the apostles, Peter and Paul, and all the rest. And so he commissioned him to write what he knew, what he gathered from the apostles about Jesus. And we have this precious, beautiful Gospel of Mark, so poetically written, so nicely written, even as a piece of literature, I would say, besides being the Word of God. And Jesus took the book, the scroll, on a Sabbath day, as he usually used to do in his hometown, Nazareth. He used to go there to pray with the others. And he again took this scroll, he opened it, and he went to look for the words that I have just said and we heard. Why? Because the presence of Jesus in their midst is the Word of God. The Word, I came to proclaim liberty to the captives, to the blind, new sight, the downtrodden to be free, and to bring the good news to the poor. Do we consider ourselves as poor in the eyes of God? Of course, I the first one. We are poor, we are sinners, we are sick. And that's how we need to approach God, as sinners, as downtrodden. And so that we feel the embrace of God in us. Because God came exactly for us, for those who feel downtrodden, who feel in the margin of society, who have no power, who are on the sideline, who are suffering, who are sick. And we need also to consider ourselves in this group of people so that we fully appreciate the love of God for us. This is what we need to hear today, that God is with us, that God loves me, and I need to be close to Him when I accept my sinful life and the way I live. How do I get closer to God? How do I appreciate more the love of God for me? By doing what He told us to do. Love one another as I have loved you. The commandment of love. When He told us that He came for the downtrodden and for the sinners, He is showing us that He loves us. If we consider us poor in the eyes of God, He is showing us how much He loves me. And I want to show others how much I love them, how much I forgive them, as God has forgiven me. And so, if we love, if we live a responsible life, and we love one another, and we live day to day, having the presence of God in us, by doing these good deeds that we do every day to others, forgiving them and loving them, then yes, we are really appreciating and knowing and living the love of God for each one of us. Let's read. God of freedom, unleash us from the binding chains we put upon ourselves and others. Fill us with compassion for those who are not free. Send us into their midst with glad tidings of liberty. God of wisdom, make clear our way, so that we might see and give sight to those who are blind in your goodness. Amen. Will you please stand up?